Justin, test. Testing, Justin. Let me know if everything's okay.
Robinson, Auburn, Alabama, around the SEC and around the nation. This is the Saturday Sports Countdown. To be a part of the program, call 256-234-6221. Now, let's join Brett, Randy, and Luke for the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. Love to hear from you out there. It's not such a beautiful Saturday, but hopefully it will clear up. And we're right here in downtown Alexander City at JR Sports Bar and Grill. So come out, have a great lunch. $5.49 snack wing basket is the special each and every time you hear Sports Blitz on the air. And Luke, glad to have you back up here.
Glad to be back. It seems like it's been a while, and it probably has been a while.
And, you know, we need the Alabama foil to the conversation out there. And, Luke, we've kind of had a couple of your Alabama fans, our listeners, to let us know that this becomes an Auburn program when you're unavailable.
I know, and I know it's hard. It's so hard because I've done this with Brett before, especially, and I know it's hard for him. I mean, it's hard for me if Austin and I were up here. It's hard for us to talk Auburn legitimately, and it's hard for you guys to talk Alabama legitimately. That's the way it is. It's funny. I was just in the post office, and I got stopped by somebody, and I don't know him, but he stopped me, and I guess he recognized me, and he said, he said, I don't know what Auburn's doing with these things. He said, if they're going to start claiming those, I want 66 back. And that's all he said to me, and he walked off, and I was like, what, he's got a point. We'll go into that later because I've got some interesting points on it. But it's funny. You're right. People tune in, people listen, and people want to hear both sides of the story.
Well, we'd love to hear from you. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6464 here locally. And thanks for tuning in, 95.9 over in the Auburn Opelika market. And Lake Broadcasting, we couldn't do it without John Kennedy and his entire staff. 97.5 Kowaliga Country here in the Lake Martin area, and Channel 2 and Channel 80 statewide on Charter Communications. It's a busy weekend. First, I want to start with Alabama because I don't think that we give the recognition to the other programs that maybe we should. And Luke, it's about as good. Well, I'm going to say it's been 5 years or so now that Alabama athletics has never seen a stretch, I would say. You've had a lot of football championships, and we all tip our hat to that. But when you look at the rest of the programs for Alabama in sports right now, it's unbelievable.
It's really strong. And, again, people are going to think I'm crazy. I attribute it all to Nick Saban. I think that his successful and his driven mentality has permeated the entire athletics department, and it's certainly worked on the golf side. Alabama 2 years ago was a freak chip-in away from winning a national championship that Texas ended up making, and they won it in extra holes, I believe. Then Alabama wins it last year over Illinois, and they win it in pretty dominating fashion. Then this year they beat Oklahoma State, who is probably historically the best golf school in the country, I would say. I think they have 10 national championships. So historically, Oklahoma State, if they're not the best, they're up there. And Alabama beats them handily again, 4-1. And so they repeat as national champions. And they have a lot of freshmen on this team, so a lot of people will be back. They've got a couple of sophomores, I believe, too. I mean, I don't think this Alabama golf program is going anywhere. Meanwhile, the softball team, they win their first 2 games. They win against Oklahoma, getting some minor bit of revenge against the Oklahoma Sooners for the Sugar Bowl. Then they defeat Kentucky last night 2-0. They get out of a bases-loaded jam with 1 out last night in the bottom of the 7th inning. So Alabama gets to wait and play at 2:30. They don't know their opponent yet. We got to see the elimination bracket today and see how that plays out. But you can't ask for a lot more from 2 programs than the Alabama softball program and the Alabama golf program. I mean, they're right up there in terms of relative to their own sports. They're right up there with the football team.
800-782-0108. When Jackie Trainey, you're going to hate to see her go. When she's on the mound, you have the utmost confidence that you're the best team out there. And in softball, Luke, it may be even more important than baseball if that's possible. But a pitcher and a very good one like Trainey is, she can win it for you.
Well, she can, and they can pitch just about every game. That's the thing is they don't, their arms don't really tire out. I mean, I guess they get tired like everybody else, but the motion doesn't lend itself to having a lot of injuries like it would in baseball. That's why you can't pitch every day in baseball. But in softball, and again, I'm not going to pretend I know softball that well. I don't. But every time I watch Alabama play, whenever they're in one of these tournaments, Jackie Trainey is pitching. So I'm assuming that it's not that big of a deal to pitch just about every game. Even on back-to-back games, she'll be pitching. And it seems like she's been there forever. I mean, it seems like Jackie Trainey has been there since I was in school. I mean, that's how long it seems like she's been there, because they're always in the College World Series. So you always hear that name because she's always pitching.
Do you like that? And I want to kind of spin this over to basketball a little bit. I personally like the idea that, kind of like Keegan Thompson at Auburn. I'm going to throw him out there. You've got him a couple of more years. You see how solid he was in his freshman campaign, and you can learn to love him. You know what I mean? I mean, and the same way with softball and all the women's sports. And that's the reason I hate it for basketball, because I think the sport really needs to make that change to at least 3 years so you can you can grasp on to these kids. And programs like Auburn and Alabama, you will end up getting much better kids because they won't be able to go to a Kentucky, which is one and done. The Devin Bookers of the world, there's only, I mean, if you go out and you get 4 or 5 Devin Bookers every year, Devin Booker's going to sit on the bench.
That's right.
That you and I just saw from Mississippi. So your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, Devin Booker wouldn't sit on the bench long. What he'll do is like everybody else is doing is transfer. There's some remarkable over 400 players transferring, moving around. Alabama's getting one in this Christoph Vidradel, I believe is his name, who's transferred twice now. He's gone from Florida Gulf Coast to another school and to Chaminade, I believe, and now over to Alabama. And players just move around, and it's so much easier for them to. And if you graduate, of course, you can do it. I know it happens in football a little bit, but in basketball, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it makes it impossible to put your arms around a team. That's the problem. I mean, Kentucky's going to love basketball no matter what. They don't care who you put on the floor. They're going to show up, and they're kind of like Alabama football. They'll show up, and if they're not doing well, they're going to gripe about it. And if they are doing well, they're probably going to gripe about it. But basketball, we need some college basketball players. Like I watched the Fab Five documentary. It was on this morning, ESPN 30 for 30. And, I mean, I yearned for those days. I mean, as soon as I saw Chris Webber as a freshman and Jalen Rose as a freshman, and they were battling Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley and Grant Hill and that whole crowd, and I was like, that's what college basketball needs really badly. But we can't – how are we supposed to fall in love with any of the Kentucky kids when they're one and done? How are we supposed to really follow Alabama or Auburn when they don't get anybody that is good enough to be an NBA caliber player? How long has it been since Alabama or Auburn's really put an NBA player in there that means anything? Gerald Wallace? I mean,
the last NBA player Auburn had on the squad was 2003, and that's Marquise Daniels.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not whether it was a great player. Marquise has been
Mo Williams, I guess, for Alabama.
He's still in the league, but he's been a player that's moved around quite a bit and seen some little stints, especially with the Celtics that I remember, that he had some nice outings, but very little. But I think that would change if you change this rule. Do you think this rule
how do you change it, though? What do you do? Do you tell kids, okay, do you do it like baseball? That's the only solution, in my opinion.
I agree.
If you go to school, you go there 3 years, that's it. Red shirt, your red shirt will count. I mean, it's 3 years. If you want to leave after a red shirt sophomore, that's fine. That's how it is in football. But if you want to come out as a high school senior, go for it. But you're done with college.
That's what I agree.
That's the only thing I can see happening. I saw a column in the local rag this week about possibly implementing the freshman ineligibility rule again. That's never going to happen. So I think we can throw that out. That's no chance. So let's take the things that we know aren't going to happen off the board, because freshmen are important. I mean, if you said freshmen are now ineligible, Kentucky wouldn't have a program. I mean, that'd be how big a deal that would be. And CBS and the NCAA and ESPN, they're never going to allow that to happen. So I think we can take that out of the equation. But I would love to see some modicum of sense in terms of kids not declaring. I mean, and it's starting to happen in football a little bit. If you notice how many kids left early from football programs this year to the NFL draft, and about half of them weren't even drafted? I mean, Adrian Hubbard is a perfect example. Now, it may be addition by subtraction for Alabama because he was so ready to leave. He probably wasn't going to be a huge cog in the wheel for the Crimson Tide next year anyway. But it's sad that he had some advice. Somebody was telling him, you may be a third or fourth rounder, and you're not drafted. And now he's at Green Bay, and he's got a shot, but he's a free agent, or I guess a free agent signing. And those guys typically don't make it. So, I mean, he's got a much less – if you're a third-round draft pick, you have a much greater chance of making it because the team didn't want to be embarrassed and say, we drafted this guy and he's not panning out. They'll give you more of a chance. If you're just a undrafted free agent, the chances of you making it are slim to none, and it's a shame for somebody like him. I mean, I'm just using him as an example, but Auburn's had guys like that. Alabama's had guys like that. We've seen it all throughout the country. And they need a way to get better advice. That's something else I would advocate, is say, let's get some guys in there that know what they're talking about to talk to these kids.
That's the point I would like. I really like the LeBrons and the Kobe Bryants of the world and the way that they were able to go out after the Kevin Durant's of the world. Let them go. They deserve to go. If some get terrible advice and go and shouldn't, then that's their own. But I would think that a Jabari Parker, and I'm thinking back to last year's freshman class, and you may have to help me a little bit, but I'm of the opinion that Jabari Parker may have come out, but he may have. I'm also of the opinion he thought pretty hard about staying at Duke.
He did.
That the 3 years at Duke after high school would have been wanted for him. Now, if you want to go the developmental league route for NBA, more power to you. But I'm of the opinion that if you think that you're a developmental type guy and you're not going to go directly in the top 10 picks of the NBA draft, you'd rather go to, I'm just speculating, you'd rather go to the NCAA where you'd get a little recognition and have fun with it. Nobody's going to watch your developmental league games. Am I missing that? So
well, the other side of that is it doesn't really matter so much if anybody's watching it. What you could do is hone your craft better if you were with the developmental league because you don't have to worry about studying.
Well,
you're just out there shooting all the time. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't want there to necessarily be a minor league. I want college to be a minor league. And people have said that in such a negative tone these many years that, college is just a developmental league for the pros. Well, I mean, I don't see what's wrong with that. Isn't that what college is supposed to be? I mean, if you're a business major, isn't college your minor league to go to business? If you're a English major, isn't it to go into education somehow? I mean, I don't understand what the problem is with it being called a minor league when typically, and I say typically, a lot of the guys go into college, especially the bigger names, their goals are to make it to the league. That's what their goal is. And college is to prepare you for the next level. Their next level is sports. Now, it may not work out, but it doesn't work out for every business major. It doesn't work out for every education major or finance major. So, I mean, it happens.
It's life. 800-782-0108. And as you bring that up, I'm tempted to think back, and I saw a number for Major League Baseball. And I don't know if you heard this part, or you may have been on the program with me when we brought it out the first time, but how many state-grown, played high school ball here in the state of Alabama are currently playing on Major League Baseball rosters?
I thought, and I'm going to say it's 7 or 8.
It's 9.
9, okay.
9 players that grew up and played high school ball here in the state of Alabama are currently on Major League Baseball rosters. Am I the only one that is kind of amazed with that number?
Do you think it's high or low?
Very low. Very, very low to me. But I guess I'm thinking that there are more out there. But there's not. It's so tough. That goes back to your topic, though, that it's so tough to make it, and the expectations are to always make it. But you really need to. I think that it's more important that we say these real numbers than we not.
Okay, well, let's say that. How many players on a per major league roster?
It's 25.
There are 25 guys on each roster.
It's cut down to 25 in the playoffs.
Okay, so there's 25, so they're roughly, what would that be, 600 some odd players? Yeah, that number is probably pretty low. At first I was thinking maybe it's not as low as you think, but it's pretty low. But you also have to factor in kids who are in the minor league system.
True.
And Alabama is not the most fertile baseball recruiting ground in the world. I mean, Florida's much better. Texas, California, Arizona probably is a lot better. Some states that are smaller than we are probably better at it because we focus so much on one sport, which is football.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Just getting started with the Saturday Sports Countdown. We're going to talk about Big Cat Weekend in Auburn. Going to talk a little bit more about Alabama's softball and Alabama's golf national championship as the softball is going after, and a lot else on tap here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown.
Let it get me down.
The Lake Martin area's premier new and used boat and motor dealership. Find out more at AlexCityMarine.com.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Alexander City. Strand Park right across from us. Just heard the commercial for the Jazz Fest that will be happening here in the next couple of weeks, June the 13th here at Strand Park in downtown Alexander City, and amphitheater on Saturday night on the 14th. Always a fun time, Luke.
It definitely is. I mean, I've been to the last few of them. I think Dr. George Hardy won the poster contest or T-shirt contest or whatever you're calling it this year, so congrats to him.
800-782-0108. How much credence do you take into these big cat type of weekends that Auburn is having down on the plains? A lot of big names coming in. Auburn ahead of the game this year. Alabama way out front, currently at number 1, but Auburn, the number 3 recruiting class in the country, behind Alabama at 1 and Penn State at 2. So it's a great start for us Auburn fans also.
Yeah, they've certainly got a good crop coming in this week. I'll tell you who's probably had the best week ever in terms of recruiting. That's Texas A&M. Texas A&M is, I mean, you know, I wasn't super high on that coaching staff right now, or at least this past year, because I thought they underachieved with what they had coming back, especially when you look, they had 3 of the top 22 players picked in the NFL draft. I mean, you need to do better than what they did, but I'm going to tell you what, he is absolutely, Kevin Sumlin is killing it in recruiting right now. But back to Auburn, they've got a good crop coming in for Big Cat Weekend. I'm looking at some of the guys coming in. I know that Darren Payne is going to be there from Shades Valley. We talk about him all the time. I do believe he'll end up at Alabama. I mean, all the crystal ball selections on Scout have him trending to Alabama. Trenton Thompson, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, will be there. I believe he'll end up at Georgia. Auburn and Alabama will probably be in there. Terry Goodwin, who is committed to Georgia right now, he's a 5-star receiver. He'll be there. I don't think he will flip. If he does, I see that probably going Alabama's way. He's been very high on Alabama lately, but I think he sticks with Georgia. I mean, in the end, I think it's going to be hard to get him out of that state. Christian Kirk, who just came from Alabama, a wide receiver out of Arizona. This is a very intriguing prospect. He just visited Alabama, had a big time there. He's going to Big Cat now. I think he's one of those kids from way out west who's not used to getting the red carpet treatment. And, of course, he just got at Alabama. Now he's going to get at Auburn. I think he's going to be blown away on both visits. It's going to be a tough decision for him later on. Torrance Gibson, quarterback who's very dynamic, 4-star kid out of Plantation, Florida. He will be there. Jovan Robinson will be there. Kerryon Johnson will be there. Jeffrey Holland, who's one of the top linebackers in the country. Tyler Carr out of the Gadsden area. This is a kid that's sort of flip-flop between Alabama and Auburn. I think most people had him trending to Auburn at the beginning of the summer, then it went to Alabama, and now it's back to Auburn. But it kind of depends. I think that Tyler Carr is one of those kids that he's been dropping in the rankings a little, so I don't know that Alabama and Auburn are just fighting over themselves to get to him. I think either school would like to have him, but it's one of those that if he goes to the other place, I don't think either one of them is going to feel terrible about it. I think he's a kid that you take every single year because he's highly rated. He's a big kid. He's in the state. At the same time, you probably have some kids on your board rated higher that maybe aren't necessarily in this area.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221 here locally. Love to hear from you. It's always big when you get as many recruits or commitments that Auburn and Alabama have currently to keep the ones you have. And our weekends like this, I think that they're a big sell for these kids, especially the ones that you currently have committed to you, because they're bringing their families in, and then they become recruiters for you. How much credence do you take in that, Luke?
I think there's a lot. I mean, they say Tyler Queen, who is a quarterback commit for for Auburn, he's really been the lead recruiter. You always have a guy like that. I think Trey Williams probably took that role for Auburn last year. That's a guy that was out in front trying to get more people to come in. Rock Thomas was kind of sort of that way. So, I mean, it's always good to have somebody in that class really pushing for you. I know Reuben Foster did it for Alabama, is doing it for Alabama right now. I mean, you like to have somebody that is either in that class or was in the previous signing class that can really come up and help a lot and can relate to the other kids.
800-782-0108. An intriguing player at Lincoln High School, John Tavius Johnson. He'll be in. And all of these kids that you get into Big Cat Weekend, I'm sure that it's a goal of you as a recruit to be invited to a showcase pretty much like this. This is the top names in the country, especially in our portion of the state, or excuse me, our portion of the country that would be invited to this. So I can only imagine that that's a big thing to the kid and their family.
It is, and I mean, I'm looking at this picture of him, and the first thing I thought this morning, and I do think he will wind up committing to Auburn. He's 6'3", 339 pounds, is John Tavius Johnson. And the first thing I thought is that kid is just absolutely humongous. I mean, you can't even fit in this box that they have for the picture for him here as I show it to Randy. And maybe it's the shirt he's wearing, it's the stripes, or, you know, big people aren't supposed to wear horizontal stripes or something. Well, he should never wear them, because I think those were vertical stripes that got turned into horizontals when he put that shirt on. But he's just a big kid, and I think he's probably a little bit underrated. Everybody's got him listed at 3-star, but I've seen some of his highlights, and I just look at him, and he looks like a player to me. So I think that's a kid that may end up committing to Auburn this weekend too.
A couple of more minutes left here on this segment, and I want to jump into some high school talk, as you and I, with the AHSA Radio Network, have been lucky enough to see many of these kids as they have either played for state championship runs, but also something that we've been proud to do is to meet a lot of these coaches and to know them. And Jamie Dubose has worked with us with the AHSA Radio Network on color commentating last year for the Super 6 state championship games. Couldn't be nicer. I can't name how many times we've had him on as a guest, whether we were at games or doing some throughout the state all-star events. Jamie has flipped from Charles Henderson, where he coached spring, but never made it to the first game, and has decided to go to Phoenix City. And if you're over in the Auburn Opelika market, this is a big story for you, because that's a rival that you've had for quite a while, and Phoenix City is known for outstanding talent. So I'll kick it to you first, and your thoughts about Jamie moving over to Phoenix City.
Gosh, I thought you put it so ironically there, where you say you flip from Charles Henderson to Phoenix City, because what do we do up here sometimes? And specifically, I know Brett's had a real problem with this. Kids who flip their commitments.
Yeah.
He's always had a problem with it. Well, guess what? Jamie Dubose, who I love, who I find to be fantastic, I admire him. He's a fantastic coach. But let's call a spade. He did what's best for him, and that was change from one commitment to another commitment. And I think we all need to take a step back and say, well, when these kids flip, I mean, if adults are going to do it too, then the kids have every right to. Kids who aren't nearly as stable as adults. Jamie Dubose is a stable adult human being, and he made the right decision, or what in his mind is the right decision for him and his family. So when kids do it, I don't want to hear anybody else complaining. I mean, this is so crazy to me that everybody has such a fit over flips when coaches do it before. He's never coached a game at Charles Henderson. So let's talk about Charles Henderson for a second. I'm happy for Coach Dubose. I'm really happy for Central Phoenix City. I want that program to be good. They should be a state competitor all the time, right there in the hunt for the title. They're in 7A. I want Central Phoenix City to do well. But let's talk about poor little old Charles Henderson for a second. I mean, that's a good program that thought they had nailed an absolutely fantastic coach down, and now they're kind of hung out to dry a little bit. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I'm sure Jamie Dubose feels badly about it. Sometimes things happen, and bad stuff happens to you, and you have to deal. I do not fault Jamie Dubose one iota. I'm okay with it. I'm just saying, for the people out there who have a duck fit, every time T.J. Yeldon flips from Auburn to Alabama, well, guess what? Adults do it too. It happens. Deal with it.
I can't say it any better, so I won't add anything else to that, but we will add a little bit on Jamie Dubose that we know. One thing I can tell you is that everywhere he's been, he's won.
True.
And the true strength that I see in him is the way that he interacts, not only with the media. I know that we're sitting here as media members, and we think that that's important. But the way that he touts his kids, and the way that he pushes his kids to get to major colleges. Florence High School, maybe they've had quite a few players move on to Division I schools. I don't know many, but I can tell you, since he's been at Florence, they've had one kid after another that's been sitting up there at the top. I know we're up against a break, but your thoughts there, Luke?
Totally. Keaton Anderson just committed to Alabama. This is a kid that he's a Tennessee legacy, but he's a very strong player. He's not Alabama's most highly rated kid, but I bet you what, he has been coached very, very well, and he's going to have a chance to coach a kid named John Broussard, who's a transfer in from Louisiana area. And this cornerback, who's going to be in next year's class, will be one of the top 4 or 5 defensive backs in the country next year.
We're going to run down the top 38 prospects in the state of Alabama. 24/7 has them ranked. A couple of those players from Phoenix City, not counting John Broussard that you just brought up. So Jamie DuBose is a new coach at Phoenix City. He's a great get. Congratulations to Central. More from the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
She bet on one, and I bet on another to show.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. Taking your phone calls, 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Let me throw out a trivia question to you, and we'll be giving away the 2014 version of the Auburn and Alabama T-shirt as you call in and get these trivia questions correct. And I'm going to have to take a little time to pull it up. But closing out, so far on Jamie DuBose and his hiring at Central of Phoenix City. Multiple times over the last 20 years I can remember. I know they won a state championship in '93 and know it very well as they beat us in the quarter 7-0, went on to win it 10-7 that year in the state championship game. They have been in the hunt number of times, always great talent. And I think with somebody like Jamie DuBose coming over, they maybe get over the hump, and I think more of their kids are going to end up. It doesn't take anything away from the coaches that they've had there in the past, but some guys just have that certain something about them that can get teams over the hump. And, Florence was so very close last year. I hate it for that community that they lose a great coach like this, because 1 point away from taking out Hoover. That's saying something, but you wish for Florence. I don't want to take anything away from Hoover, but you wish for Florence or somebody out there in the state that this could get a little bit more evenly matched.
Yeah, and well, that's pretty evenly matched. But here's the thing about that, Randy. I always say, gosh, they're so close. It would have been so awesome. But I love the everybody chasing the giant. I mean, I'm big on. I'm not a big fan of the Butlers making the NCAA tournament final. I want all these teams to be very close to beating Hoover and make it interesting, and then I want Hoover to be there because Hoover's more fun to watch to me.
Well, they are, but I take the opposite end of that spectrum, and I think the world of Coach Niblett at Hoover. We have gotten to know him about as well as we have Jamie over the years, but 14 out of 15 years making a championship game, enough's enough. Even Alabama, and I know you're an Alabama fan, and look, y'all are at the top of the heap, but not every year. I mean, there's multiple years. I mean, you've got your down ones, not down since Saban, but you don't win national championships every year. But 14 out of 15 years, enough is enough. And I would hope the northern half of the state, and I see some teams up there that are making a run for closing the gap. Florence was definitely closing the gap. Clay Chalkwell, I think, is trying to close the gap. I think Sparkman and Bob Jones have a very good opportunity to get a little bit closer there, but you and I differ in our opinions there.
Well, I could have lived with Florence winning it. I mean, they had the Kendrick Doss, I know the quarterback, who's headed to Ole Miss. That's a kid. They, of course, have Keaton Anderson on that team, who's now committed to Alabama. He's only a junior. So I would have been fine with them winning this year. But I like that Hoover's there almost every year. I mean, I enjoy that. That gives everybody else something to aim for. And Hoover's made everybody else better, because if you're not getting better, you're going to get absolutely run over. I think the same thing about the way the SEC was. I mean, I think Florida initially made everybody better, and then LSU helped make everybody better. Alabama helped make everybody better. I think Auburn's helped to some extent. I mean, I think all these teams, they feed off the other because the fan bases are seeing it and saying, I want to be like that.
Well, I'll even say as an Auburn fan, I don't think that I would put us in those three teams, but to be an Auburn fan right now, Luke, I think we could be changing the dynamic of the SEC. I'll put y'all three up there in the years past, and maybe Alabama still currently, but especially with the offense and Gus Malzahn and what he's doing on the recruiting front, you may say the same thing about Auburn here in the next 5 to 7 years. We'll just have to see. But if you're out and about, you're riding around, your thoughts on Jamie DuBose as the new coach at Central of Phoenix City, 800-782-0108, 256-234-6464. One thing we always do with our Sports Blitz programming that differs from Sports Call is we talk high school sports. We love it. One of the main things that Luke loves is recruiting. So we're going to run down the top 38 recruits here in the state of Alabama. 10 of those 38 are in our listening area, and we'll run down and highlight those 10 for sure, but I want to run down the top 5 so far. Darren Payne, Shades Valley High School, 6'2", 316. He's at Big Cat Weekend this weekend at Auburn. Strong, a 98 is where he is. He's a 4- and 5-star guy. He fits the mold of the defensive tackle you're looking for.
He's a monster. Maybe doesn't give you all the production you want sometimes, and that may be what keeps him from being the number 1 or number 2 player in the country, but he is so strong, so big, so much potential. I think he's going to be fabulous at the next level.
800-782-0108. I think we're up against another break out there. And let me throw a trivia question your way before we go to this break. LeBron James has 100 career playoff wins. Who's the only player to reach 100 career playoff wins before turning 30? 800-782-0108. We'll give away a Sports Call Alabama or Auburn T-shirt. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Minutes now.
Calling Brett back now. I'll text you when I got him. Three, two.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. $5.49 Snack Wing Basket is the special each and every time you hear Sports Blitz on the air. $1.99, bring your kids out in uniform. And, Luke, during the summer months, a lot of tournaments going on in the Alexander City area. So if you're coming into Alexander City for a soccer tournament or a baseball tournament over at the Sportsplex, make sure to ask where JR's is and bring your kids over here, and they'll eat off the kids' menu for $1.99 as we're running down the top 38 prospects in the state of Alabama for football for 2015. We just mentioned Darren Payne, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'll start with 2. Lester Cotton, offensive guard from Central over in Tuscaloosa, 6'4", 325, committed to Alabama, outstanding player.
He really is, and he's shot up most everybody's charts this summer. He's gone to several different camps, and he's more than held his own, and in fact, he's dominated most every other opponent he's faced. So I think Lester Cotton's the kind of kid that he's very deserving of his rankings. He's on the precipice of being a 5-star on a couple of ranking services, but I think a high 4-star is where he needs to be.
You and I did a little research, and I've had a couple of people ask me. Coach Martin, that coached here at Benjamin Russell High School, won a state championship back in 2001 as the coach. He's been over at Alabama and has obviously done an outstanding job for Nick Saban because he's been there since the start of Saban coming to Alabama. And Coach Martin's got a grandson, Malik. He plays over in the Tuscaloosa area. Not one of these top 38, but he's 6'1", 333 pounds was the listing that we had. Is getting some looks from a lot of places. No offers so far, but we thought we'd throw that info out there.
When you're 6'1", 331, if you can move at all, and if you have the DNA like he's got, I mean, Coach Martin, just being his grandson ought to be worth some kind of look. And the fact that he's bigger than Mothra ought to help him out a little bit too.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Brian and Eclectic, you're on Sports Blitz. Brian, you there with us?
Jordan.
Say it again, Brian.
Michael Jordan was his answer.
Michael Jordan is not correct, as LeBron James now with 100 victories in the playoffs, named the only other player that had 100 victories before their 30th birthday. And Brian said Michael Jordan, and that one's not correct.
Thank you, Brian.
We appreciate your phone call out there, 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Counting down the top 38 prospects here in the state of Alabama. Number 3, he's over at Big Cat this weekend. One of the reasons for having the Big Cat is to keep the Big Cats on the line. And Kerryon Johnson is one of those players, 6 foot, 200-pounder. You and I have been watching him since I think he was in the 8th or 9th grade in basketball from Madison Academy. He's a running back, a dynamic player, could play running back, could play safety. I think Alabama was recruiting him as a safety. He can play either one, but he's committed to Auburn and comes from a good bloodline also.
Oh, he does. I think that Kerryon Johnson will be a very good running back at the next level, but I do think he's an All-American safety. I just think he's kind of Mark Barony. I think that if he plays the defensive side, he's a long-term NFL player. And, again, we've seen this more and more. Running backs aren't that valuable a commodity in the NFL anymore. I mean, they've got, about 3 or 4 good to decent years. I mean, not everybody's going to be Adrian Peterson or get anywhere close. I think that you do better as a defensive back, and I think he's got the athleticism to be a heck of one.
Ben Tate, I follow him, and that's exactly what he says. He says it's heartbreaking to see the way the NFL owners value running backs, and it's changed so much. And I don't want to misprint what he said, but my understanding was the same thing you just said. I almost wish that I would have moved to a safety and would have played a different position because the value and the duration that they expect you to have. And it doesn't take away how valuable a running back. An outstanding running back is valuable, but they just don't have a very long lifespan.
Everybody would take Adrian Peterson, but they're so few and far between. Eddie Lacy's a tremendous back in the NFL, but he's not an all-timer, and he's probably got he might have 6 really good years in him. I mean, that's my guess. I mean, if he surprises me, that's great. I would be less surprised if he only had 3. Because think about the running back position for a second. I know linemen make contact on every play, but they're relatively close to one another.
True.
A running back, when they get hit, it's usually hard, and it's usually they're running fast and the other guy's running fast. Or even if they're blocking somebody who's blitzing, who's coming at full speed, and they've got to get in front of it. And it's just physics. I mean, they end up getting hurt more because they are in more violent collisions probably than any other position on the field.
How often do you hear of an offensive or defensive lineman having a concussion?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it happens
does.
all the time. But I mean, you don't hear about it as much.
You don't hear about it near as much. Let's go back to the phone lines, and we got Brett Pritchard on the phone. And Brett had a great interview with Jamie DuBose on Tuesday night. And Brett, thanks for taking a little time to call us this afternoon.
Shoot you up, man, and you guys are doing a great job. We're glad to have you back, brother.
Glad to be back. I feel like I've been gone for a month, and really I have been.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. But, yeah, I just wanted to add, I know y'all moved on, started to talk about some of the prospects and recruits and all, but, you know, Coach DuBose, he had a hard decision. And, Luke, I think you made mention of that. And, you know, we talk about, you know, kids flipping, and we do. We all get emotional. You know, I'm the first to admit that, you know, I think sometimes that word gets thrown around very loosely, and the definition of what commitment means kind of gets lost. But that's the day and age that we live in. I think we've all come to grips with it because it's happened so much, and, you know, we just learn to deal with it as fans. But, you know, it's a little bit different when you're a coach. He's making a decision about what's best for him and his family, and I know that's the same thing with kids. They got to do the best for them. But, you know, he's a professional, and that job came open, and he alluded to it on the interview. You know, Phoenix City was a job that he had eyed, you know, even while he was at Prattville, because he was enamored with the talent year in and year out, and he thought that was a place that could be a Hoover or a Prattville in the future. And when this job came open, he jumped on it because, as he talked about on the interview, you don't ever know if that door is going to open again, and you don't know if you'll have that chance again. It wasn't anything against Charles Henderson, and listen, he was truly remorseful about leaving Charles Henderson. I mean, it was a situation where he felt like, you know, 90 days out from the start of high school football season, that he hated to do that, but timing is never perfect in this situation, and he'll either take it or miss this opportunity. So he said that, you know, he hated to leave the kids at Charles Henderson. There's a lot of great kids down there, but he's looking forward to the opportunity at Phoenix City. And like both of you guys said, we know Jamie DuBose personally. You know, he worked with us this past year in the booth during the Super Six. He's a class guy. We've got nothing but respect for him, and we wish him nothing but the best over Phoenix City. But there's always somebody left in the wake of those decisions, and unfortunately, Charles Henderson is left in his wake.
I totally agree. Have absolutely no problem with it. Love Jamie DuBose. I guess my only problem with the whole situation is when people get upset about a flip. And we only get upset, Randy and I talked about it off air, you only get upset if it's your school, because you can't believe somebody would rather go to school B than your school. I mean, it's just, wow, in the world would you do that? But you know what? I mean, I think the kids are making the same types of decisions. I think it's the same way when Cam Newton or when Mark Barron or when Eddie Lacy or when Trey Mason goes pro early. They're making the decision that's best for them and best for their family. I think Jamie DuBose did exactly that. And I think when recruits decide to change, just like the mass exodus of Vanderbilt kids that decided to decommit after James Franklin left, you know what? They want to go play for James Franklin, so a lot of them went and committed to Penn State, and everybody had a fit about it because you're supposed to commit to the school. Well, it's not that way anymore, and I think the same thing with Jamie DuBose. There are extenuating circumstances that made him have to leave Charles Henderson and go to another school, and everybody's just got to learn to deal with it, and I hate it for Charles Henderson. It's a great program, but they'll move on.
Yeah, they will, and I want to add one more thing, and, you know, we all learn lessons. We all learn as we grow. And, you know, I've learned too, and it started all that with TJ Yeldon. You brought that up earlier in the show. I heard you refer to me about, you know, being upset with that flip. And at the time it was, you know, because he had said all the things he had said. He told you on an on-field interview down there at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game about how excited he was to enroll at Auburn early to get started. And then just a few weeks later, he flipped and committed to Alabama. And, you know, it is what it is. And what you got to understand as a fan of your program is that you've got to go, that one kid's not going to make or break our program. If we got good coaches, there's plenty of good athletes out there, plenty of good kids they've got to go out and work and get somebody else. You know, T.J. Yeldon's been playing for Alabama for a while now. Auburn was able to get Trey Mason in there. Saw what he did last year. Auburn played against T.J. Yeldon last year. Auburn came out on the winning side. So you got to understand that you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. If you've got good coaches and got a good program, that you're going to lose some of those kids, but you're also going to be the benefactor of getting some of those kids.
Yeah, that's true, and it worked out for T.J. Yeldon. He's 1,100 yards from being Alabama's all-time leading rusher. I mean, it worked out best for everybody. I mean, again, I don't see why anybody be upset. I mean, Nick Saban had to tell the press, hey, I'm not going to Alabama, and he did. I mean, coaches do that all the time. I bet you anything Jamie Dubose was telling booster clubs at Charles Henderson, I'm not going anywhere. I plan on being here. And guess what? He left. I don't blame him one iota. It happens. It's part of the business.
Brett, thanks for calling in this afternoon, and look forward to having you back on Tuesday.
Yeah, Randy, and I want to make one more point to you and let you kind of elaborate on this as I get off. Phoenix City, we all know how great they always are talent-wise. And now that Jamie Dubose is over there, not saying that, you know, Coach Lowe didn't get it done over there with what he had. I'm telling you, we all know what kind of coach Jamie Dubose is. You better watch out for Phoenix City.
Thanks, Brett, and I'll close as we're talking about Phoenix City, and I'm saying this because Phoenix City has broken my heart more times than I would like to add, and so I am no fan of Phoenix City. But that is not taking anything away from that program. I'm no fan because they did break our heart winning some of those games and some close ones, not only in football but in baseball back in the 90s. Outstanding program, very, very good community when it comes to athletics in the youth as well. So Jamie's going to a tremendous place. And, again, we'd love to hear from you. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
off the page at some folks. I mean, he did some really nice things, and it's really hard for some of these guys. It's kind of like the college football poll. If you start out outside the top 25, no matter how well you do, you got to do some really good things to move way up into the top 10. And Cabin's just about done that. I mean, he's been so unstoppable at some of these camps that he's moved from virtually unknown into the top 10 some of these places.
Lots of players here in our listening audience between 20 and 30. First off, we'll start with number 24 ranked prospect in the state, and this is 24/7's rankings, is Drew Kaiser, the center over at Opelika High School. Very big, good player, 6'4", 285 pounds. 12 schools currently have offers in for him. Number 27 ranked player is also a Smith Station player, is Nigel Lawrence, 6'1", 182 pounders, plays safety. Very high ranking for him as well. Number 28 player is Quandeski Whitlow, 6'3", 221. Defensive end from Opelika High School. Opelika and Smith Station. You haven't heard an Auburn High School player. It's been a long time since you get through the top 30 in the state and not hear an Auburn High School player.
Well, and you consider they've had names like, and I know he didn't pan out, but D. Finley, of course, Rashawn Evans, Reuben Foster. I mean, they've had some big names down there.
Anthony Jennings is where Davil High School comes into the mix. 6'3", 257-pounder from Davil, and you will vouch. He's all 257. Very good body there for Davil High School.
No doubt, and I think that Desharius Flowers may be a little overrated on that list, and I definitely think that Jennings is underrated on that list.
Last three, as we're up against the break, is the number 31 ranked prospect in the state, Jalen Harris from St. James High School in Montgomery. The 35th ranked prospect is Josh Crawford, 5'11", 214-pound running back from Edgewood Academy in Elmore County, and this will make the third out of the top 38 from Opelika High School. Roy Yancey, outside linebacker, 6'1", 190. Opelika is doing things right over there with recruits and getting these players seen and doing a tremendous job. Up against the top of the hour break, more of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Bumper coming. Three, 2, 1.
1 hour down, 1 hour to go here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221, and we'll throw that trivia question back out there as we start the second hour of the program and give away an Auburn or Alabama Sports Blitz T-shirt. LeBron James now with 100 wins in the playoffs before his 30th birthday. Who's the only other player to reach 100 playoff victories before their 30th birthday in the NBA? 800-0108-256-234-6221. A great first hour of the program as we've run down the Big Cat weekend at Auburn. Alabama's strong play in all of the spring sports so far. Softball wins 2-0 last night over Kentucky to move to 2-0 in the softball championships. Alabama's golf wins another national title. 2 in a row there. We've talked about Jamie DuBose's move from Charles Henderson over to Central Phoenix City. The top 38 prospects here in the state. To start the second hour, we're going to talk about what I've been hearing all week. Can't wait to hear you and Luke hash this one out as the national championships, as Auburn looks to add some national titles to the list that they currently market themselves under. First, I'll let you start with it. What year was it? And I've seen the program, and maybe I don't know the exact date, but I've seen the program where Alabama went back and retroactively went from, I say, 6 or 8.
It's like the early 80s.
Yeah, it was in the early 80s. Alabama had claimed 6 or 8 at that time, and then they moved it up to 12 to 14, whatever that number may be. Do you know that date, and do you know the talk, and can you remember anything that went on around that, Luke?
I mean, I was too young, and again, I said this on the Tuesday show when we talked about it last, that, I mean, look, anything prior to late 60s, I mean, I was born in the early 70s, so I don't really care about the other stuff. So Auburn claiming the 1910 or 1913 title, I don't care. Claim it. I mean, I'm looking back at it now, and they were named the let me find it really quickly here, the 1913 champion by something called whatever the BR is here on this abbreviation system, and that is the Billingsley Report. Everybody knows how big the Billingsley Report is. But, if Auburn wants to claim that one, man, fly your flag. Claiming 1993, though, delegitimizes anything else you're doing. Because here's the funny thing that's so ironic, and this is why it's so Auburn, and I think Auburn is making a mockery of it themselves. They want to claim 2004 because USC was on probation, right?
Yes.
But you do also want to claim 93 when you were on probation. You can't really do it both ways. I mean, if you want to claim 2004, much more legitimate claim than 93 when you couldn't play in a championship game and you couldn't play in an SEC championship game or the national championship game. I mean, if you want to say something about 04, I mean, if you want to recognize them to some description, I mean, more power to you. You want to recognize 1983? Look, I wasn't really old enough to remember that team. I know it was a good team. I know they only lost one game, and I know they were hopped by Miami, which was really just a popularity contest. And I understand, I mean, you got hosed. But I also went down this list. If Alabama claims every championship that's on the Billingsley Report or the Farmer's Almanac, they would have 19. They wouldn't have 15. They'd have 19.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Again, we'd love to hear from you out there. The reason we're bringing this up is Jay Jacobs has come out and said that Auburn will put a committee together to make a determination before the next football season which ones the Auburn family would like to recognize as national title. And I will put his quote out there. We want to do what's best for Auburn, regardless of what the rest of the world thinks or says. Jacobs said in an interview with AL.com, the things that I said about it back in January is the same that I feel about it today. If other schools are counting championships a certain way, then we should count the same exact way. So, which years are those that Auburn's looking back to? 1910, 13, and 14, 83, 93, and 2004, to go along with the two that they currently already claim in 57 and 2010. Out of those other 6 years, which ones do you feel out there as Auburn fans or Alabama fans? Which ones would you say, yeah, I get it? You know, Luke's sitting here saying 2004, you want to fly something, fly it. 13, the NCAA already recognizes Auburn as a national title holder there. I have no earthly idea why you don't claim that one. So 83, look, it was a popularity contest. Auburn had the to go back to your don't even bring up the Boise State to me. I will fall off the deck if you bring up the Boise State to bring up the 83. Auburn played the #1 strength of schedule in the country. They only had one common opponent back in 83. It was Florida. Auburn beat Florida. Miami lost to them. Both teams lost a game that year. Auburn was 3 going into the bowl game. Miami was 4. Somehow in the world during the popularity contest, Auburn was jumped.
It's a hosing.
It is.
83 is probably the biggest hosing of all. It's over 2004. It's definitely over 93.
Yeah.
It's over any of those. But it happens. Alabama got hosed in 66, and to hear the guys that are one generation ahead of me talk about it, that's the most egregious thing that's happened in their lifetime. There's a book about it, The Missing Ring. That team may have been Bear Bryant's best team, and they don't get recognized because Notre Dame and Michigan State played a tie. Now, they did actually they were recognized as the champion by the Berryman report and the Sagarin ratings, I think. There were 2, but Alabama didn't claim it. I don't know why.
I don't either.
But you know what? I think that it's one of those things to me that in this day and age is kind of silly to go back and say, you know what, 100 years ago we won it. Well, I mean, again, I just think all this is kind of silly. I think Alabama's claiming 41 is silly. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it.
It's the worst.
But they were recognized. I think 93 is up there, though. I'm telling you.
No. Alabama was 7-2-1.
No, they were 8-2. They were 8-2.
Okay, 8-2, and finished 20th in the AP poll and lost to Mississippi State and claim it. Come on. Mississippi State went undefeated, won the SEC.
But Mississippi State wasn't named national champion by anybody. That's what's weird.
What?
And again, I'm not saying – I'm just saying that back then that's what it was.
Even the 93, I mean, Auburn.
There was no unified body. See, that's why I like to start claiming these when there was an AP and a UPI. Now, at that time, there was an AP. I don't think there was a UPI then, but there was an AP and a UPI. And also, what people forget is at those times, the bowl games, they decided before the bowl games because the bowl game was just a reward. It was just a, you know what, go play it if you want to. It's a glorified scrimmage.
Like 64 when Alabama lost in the bowl game.
Granted. Exactly. So what I'm saying is, or 73 when Alabama lost to Notre Dame. That was just one of those games where it was after the fact, and they didn't look at it like the Super Bowl. Today, that would be a monster. And it's different today than it was then. Again,
which is the reason that it becomes a marketing issue. And
totally
Alabama, to give us, I had an update, Alabama had, before 1983, claimed 6 national championships. Media Guide changed it in 1983 to 11 national championships. I've been the first one since we've been doing this program to say, why wouldn't you? Why in the world would you not? It's a marketing ploy. When you now put the 15 out there, no matter what, us Auburn, we're going to say that about you. You're going to say that about us when we start putting 6 out there or 5, whatever this number becomes. Y'all are going to have a joke. We've already been joking about the 15. So that's the reason I kind of agree with Jay Jacobs. It really doesn't matter what you think because you're going to joke about us. I'm going to joke about you no matter what. But it does matter to recruits. I think it matters that you tell your history and you tell it equally with your top competitor. And if equally says that in 1983 Alabama is going to change it from 6 to 11 on their media guide, why and what does it matter if Auburn changes theirs 5 difference in 2014? I'm of the opinion do it.
And you know what? I see that it's a valid point too. At the same time, I guess it cheapens the whole experience. It's just like us saying, you know what? Right here, Saturday Sports Countdown, best radio show in the country. Who's to say it isn't? I just called it is, so it is.
But look, I don't really – back to what Jay Jacobs said, and I'm going to agree with him again. If you do it and y'all are going to fly them, we do it, that's fine. I'm good with that. I have no understanding why you wouldn't. It is a marketing. It's kids that look. 2014 kids that were born 18 years ago. They have no earthly idea what happened back then, but they would be able to spout out Auburn's won 6 national championships.
I think we all ought to get participation banners from here henceforth. I think everybody ought to get a flag that says they won a national championship. no matter what
So
anybody says.
I guess we're going to close this segment and we'll take your phone calls. Well, it's perfectly fine for Alabama to make the determination.
I've already told you I hate 41. I think it's so stupid.
No. Well, how about the other 5 that y'all added?
Name one that you don't like.
I like all of them. Fly 41 for all I care.
I say we start flying 66. I say we fly 82.
But you
fly 88.
Between 82's end of the season to 83's media guide popping out, somehow y'all miraculously, after that Liberty Bowl victory, had 5 more national titles.
Well, that was a big year for us.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this. Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 40 minutes left here on the program. Good time for you to call in and let us know your thoughts on our topic. We were just discussing very nicely the thoughts about the national championship numbers for both Auburn and Alabama. 800-782-0108.
It's so funny. I'm looking through these. In 1981, there were 6 teams that were named national champions by somebody. Now, Clemson went undefeated, won it on AP, and that's what universally everybody accepts Clemson. But Nebraska was named a national champ along with 3 other teams by the NCF, whatever the heck that is, and Nebraska was 9-3. I mean, things have just changed so much and thankfully they've changed for the better. And now we also have TV, so we can see other teams and know who's better and who's not in general. I think and Notre Dame didn't even used to play in bowls. That's why they would already be a national champ, and then they'd say we don't want to go to a bowl because we don't even want to take a chance at losing. So things have just changed, 20-fold. And it's so funny. I mean, things have come so far that the SEC just doled out $22 million per team the other day, and I think in 1983 or 82 the SEC split about $2 million between all 10 teams.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that nuts how far things have come? But I do want to ask you one other thing since we're kind of on this topic. Well, let me make this other point first. That the other day I was killing Trey Williams, the Auburn signee, who I think is a fabulous player, but he's come out and said a lot of things about Alabama, and he said I just don't think a guy who hadn't played a down yet should be talking about. Well, as I was talking about that the other day, and I still believe it, now that I'm up here, Josh Frazier, who's a signee for Alabama, he's come out on Twitter, and while we've been on this show, and what he said is, Auburn's so cocky, bro, like they won the national championship or something when they beat us. I can't wait to play them. See, I don't think he should be saying that either. I'm going to be fair about this. I don't think if you're a signee, if you're a player, I don't like it. But if you're a signee who hadn't been on the field yet, like Trey Williams or Josh Frazier, please don't say anything about stuff like that because we don't even know if you're going to be on the field to be able to make something happen.
Which brings up a good point. Again, we'd love to hear from you, 256-234-6221. What do? Do you cut them off?
Well, that's why social media is so dangerous.
Yeah.
We love it and we hate it because I honestly.
Well, we love it, but I mean.
If you're Nick Saban or Gus Malzahn, you hate it.
I would. Yeah, I think that you and I are totally different than someone that's under you, and it can be taken and words can be construed in a different way. So, yeah, I think the best thing to do is to shut them down with it. Now, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's differing ways to look at it, but I would agree that Nick Saban's use of coaches not being allowed to really be in the forefront also, I think that's going to be important this year, by the way, as y'all got Lane again, by the way. I want to reiterate this, that Lane Kiffin is coaching at Alabama, Luke.
And you know what? I'm going to reserve judgment. I don't like the guy. I mean, I've said that from the jump. I'm going to reserve judgment on his coaching ability until something happens. But he spoke the other day, and he was talking about actually Rashaan Evans' commitment and all these other things. And, I don't want Lane talking either. I mean, honestly, I like Saban's approach to that for the most part, which is everybody else have a nice warm glass to shut you yapper. And I think that Josh Frazier, I think that Trey Williams, I mean, if you hadn't played yet, please don't say anything. I mean, if you're Cam Newton or even if you're Mark Ingram, I don't want you saying anything. I don't want you trash talking. I mean, it's not the college game. That's more NFL stuff. When you get to the league, say what you want to say because people are paid to take your head off or you're paid to take somebody else's head off. Now, moving away from that, what is your opinion of the Chris Davis outline on the field for Big Cat Weekend?
I see why Auburn did it. It's for the kids. It's to show them and make them. I'm sure they're out there walking it or running it themselves.
If you're an Alabama fan and it makes you mad, what in the world did you expect them to do? I mean, first of all, I mean this in the most derogatory way and in the most positive way. That's Auburn. That's so Auburn. That's what Auburn's going to do. So if you don't want them to do it, don't let them return the kick 109 yards. How about that? I mean, it's tacky. Yes, it's probably just terrible motivational fodder, and it's slap in the face, all those other things. But that's what they are going to do. And if you don't want them to do it, then don't let them run the kickback. I mean, everybody who's been upset about some things from the kick six or everybody showing it all the time, there's one way to stop it. Don't let them do it.
Well, and I'll go back to the marketing aspect of this to the kids and what builds your programs. And Nick Saban's doing it better than anyone and looks to have the best class he's ever had this year. It's marketing to kids and whatever it takes to get to them and their parents and whoever that decision maker, do it. I mean, what is Auburn known for right now? What has been shown more and more viral than any play that Auburn has had? It's not that Georgia play. Trust me, that was nowhere near. I don't know the number, but I would bet the number of hits on YouTube for the Georgia play in comparison to Alabama is not even close. So
not close.
You want to tout that. You want to make sure that stays in the mind of the kids. And back to the national championship numbers. I mean, fly them. If nobody's going to argue, if some of them are like the 10, the 13, and the 14 years, if no matter if they think that it's silly to be flying, fly them anyway. I mean, I know one of those years, Auburn, I don't even think they gave up a point. If they did, they gave up like 6.
Well, do you think Alabama should fly 2002 SEC West champ banner? They were on probation, couldn't go to the thing.
Look, when
you want to fly whatever.
I want to fly what is within reason. I don't think a 9-3 Nebraska team is within reason. These years that Auburn, look, I'm not necessarily sitting up here touting 93. That's not one I would fly. But that was an undefeated team that beat the 2 teams that played in the SEC championship game and then beat the next year the Florida team.
The next year has nothing to do with it.
Well,
We talked about that.
But it does to me.
Well, I mean,
if you're going to throw it out there, don't you think you ought to lost again to Florida if you'd had to play them again? No, the next time we played them, we beat them too at their place.
But it's a totally different animal. It's just like I talked about 2012 Auburn was different than 2013 Auburn by a long shot. If anybody proved it, it's Auburn.
Back to it, 9-3 marks. I wouldn't run a flag up the flagpole with that. Undefeated years, 2004. When the team doesn't even get to claim that championship, I'd run that flag up as fast as I could get it up.
If Auburn wants to run one up, saying in 2004 we were undefeated, man, I'm right there with them. I'm right there with them. I'm saying I would do that too. That was a very prideful year. That was a big deal. You had 4 NFL first-round draft picks. I'm all about it.
I tell you what, when y'all pull down that 8-2 41 team and 20th in the AP poll, then we'll decide that we're not going to run one up.
Y'all gonna run them all up. Y'all gonna probably come get ours.
I hope so.
Sounds like
some of them. I'm sure we had a better record than you did in the years that y'all ran them up. 256-234-6221. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 30 minutes left here on the program. We'll take your phone calls, 256-234-6221. If you've got a topic you'd like us to discuss, or if you'd like to discuss the national championship topic that we've been on for the last two segments, we'd love to hear from you. Our trivia question, and we'll pass this along to you again, is LeBron now up to 100 victories in the NBA playoffs in his career. Name the only other player to reach 100 NBA playoff victories before their 30th birthday. 800-782-0108. You had Keith McCants on a couple of weeks ago on Sports Blitz, and your timing was impeccable, Luke.
And I don't know what it is. You know, sometimes things just happen for a reason. And our having Keith McCants on and then his being arrested, and, I mean, I guess I can read off what happened here. A former player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who has had a long, troubled criminal history has been arrested again. Port Richey police say Keith McCants was arrested Thursday on one charge of driving with a suspended license and one charge of drug possession paraphernalia. Now, if you're out there and you saw my interview with Keith McCants, which is great, not for anything that I did, it's for everything that he did. I really could have just said, here's Keith McCants, go. And just walked away, and it would have been awesome. But the best part of that interview, and this is why his having been arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia is not surprising to me, and Justin will back me up here, Justin Clayton, our producer. But what was so funny, as Keith McCants was telling a story, and there's a great story, Keith McCants' life, he is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. He's been involved in everything, and he was the one that broke up the fight between Buddy Ryan and Kevin Gilbride, who was the offensive and defense coordinator, respectively, for the Houston Oilers at the time. Keith McCants happened to be on the team, and the two guys end up getting in a fight, and they're playing the New York Jets. And what's so funny is Keith McCants, I said, Keith, you were in on this fight. It's so famous in NFL history, and it's such a comical, tragic, funny thing. And he said, yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. We were playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And we had been game planning for Derek Thomas all week long. And my first thought was, hey, maybe that's why you were losing, because you were playing the Jets and Derek Thomas wasn't on that team.
And Justin's rolling that video footage, by the way.
Oh, my God. It was absolutely fantastic. But, I mean, so many things he said were fantastic. He's an interesting cat, man. He really, in the Mobile area, he is to linebackers what Damian Craig is to quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. In terms of, he's almost taken on this mythical status of, I saw Keith McCants play at Murphy High School, and I remember he decapitated somebody, like literally. And it's sort of the same way when Damian Craig was playing at Blount High School. People just remember him so fondly, and he'll always have a big name. But Keith has taken his life has taken so many twists and turns, and he somehow, some way, he's wound up being a master scuba diver in the Tampa area. He made so much money, and then he lost it all, and apparently he's got some of it back. He's got some things in the works he didn't want me to bring up, so I won't. But, man, he's an interesting cat. But the fact that he was arrested again is really 0% surprise.
800-782-0108. As you just mentioned, Derek Thomas, you had a great article in the Outlook this week. And Derek Thomas, what in the world took it this long? There is one thing that is for certain. The next lineman or defensive end or outside backer or jack, whatever he is, that gets 27 sacks, you can write his name directly on the Heisman Trophy. I still am clueless how in the world he finished. Did he finish fifth?
I believe he finished fifth that year. I can look it up really quickly, but he finished fifth. 27 sacks at a time in an era when you played, I think it was 12 games max. I mean, you didn't have a SEC title game. You didn't have that extra game. Everybody was 11 regular season games and then the bowl game. So he averaged a little over 2 sacks per game. You know, and of course Alabama plays some teams that, you know, you're blowing out, so he doesn't play the whole game. I mean, Derek Thomas, in my opinion, is the greatest player I've seen at Alabama in my generation, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's the best college linebacker there's ever been.
A College Football Hall of Fame, and very deserving there as Derek Thomas gets in. And we'll come back. We got about 20 minutes left here on the program. You got any topics you'd love to talk about? We'd love to hear from you. 256-234-6221. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. 20 more minutes left on the program. 800-782-0108. Let's move into the baseball regionals. Alabama will be taking on Florida State. I would be willing to bet nobody figured that this game would be going on in an elimination matchup this early, but Alabama and Florida State is drummed last night down in Tallahassee. And Luke, let's run down the rest of the brackets and who will be playing, especially Jacksonville State, as they made it through and they're taking on Ole Miss. Not sure if that game has started yet, but it was rained out last night.
Well, I'm going to look for the brackets with SEC ties or local ties, and I guess you move all the way down to the LSU bracket. They've already won their first game. They won against Southeast Louisiana last night, and they will play Houston today. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, it's going to be Georgia Southern against Kennesaw State in the winner's bracket of the Florida State regional, where Alabama and Florida State will be playing each other. I believe that's starting about right now. Kentucky, they're the 2 seed in the Louisville bracket, and they lose yesterday to Kansas. So Kansas and Louisville, what a great basketball bracket that is. Louisville, Kent State, Kansas, and Kentucky. That'd be a great basketball bracket, no doubt. Vanderbilt and their regional, They will take on the 2-seed Oregon today. Moving over to the other side here, Arkansas, they won yesterday, so they will take on Virginia in Charlottesville. South Carolina, they win their regional or win their first game, and they will play Maryland, who is the 2-seed in their regional. Ole Miss will face Jacksonville State today. Now, that game was rained out yesterday, so the two teams will play today. They'll try and squeeze in a lot of games here very, very quickly over this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if you heard about some more rainouts coming up soon. I think the weather's still supposed to be bad or sketchy in some places. Moving up the bracket, Miami of Florida, some people interested in them. They're the number 1 seed in their own bracket. They will take on Texas Tech. And Florida, they lose yesterday to the College of Charleston. So Florida's in the losers bracket, and they will take on North Carolina, who's also in the losers bracket. Even though they're the 3 seed, North Carolina's a pretty powerful program. So Long Beach State and College of Charleston move on in the winners bracket of the Florida Regional.
800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. If I'm reading this correctly, Ole Miss and Jacksonville State, first pitch will be at 4 this afternoon. Maybe I'm off there, maybe I'm right. But, again, it's actually set for 5 p.m. So if you've got some updates on that, reason that it's important in the Alexander City area is our very own Griff Gordon, who had another outstanding year at Jacksonville State. He was an OVC all-tournament team as well as an all-team member for the entire season as he hit 370-plus and had another outstanding season in his senior campaign. I think he has been all-region or all-district or all whatever there is to win since he went to Southern Union for 2 years, and now since he's been at Jacksonville State, he's been right there on each of those lists, can swing the bat as well as anybody, and they'll be depending on him highly as they'll be taking on Ole Miss down in Oxford. So, again, if you've got some games that you'd like to talk about, we'll definitely do that. Luke, your thoughts is which bracket or which national championship do you feel is the hardest to win? This baseball, pretty tough to get through something like this. It's a marathon.
It is, and Cal State Fullerton won it as a 4 seed a few years ago, which I hate. I know some people love the Cinderella and all that. I mean, the 4 seed is probably, it's not the equivalent of a 16 seed in basketball, but it's probably more like a 11, 12 seed maybe. And I don't want an 11, 12 seed to win it. I mean, if you've had a mediocre year, we were talking about Nebraska claiming a national championship in 81 at 9-3. I don't think they should. I'm just like you. I don't think they should get to claim it. I don't. I feel like the best teams need to have the shot at it. Now, I know in baseball you have more teams, so you got to have more teams in competition for it, and I'm okay with that. I think baseball's got too many teams, just like I think the basketball tournament's got too many teams.
256-234-6221. Call in. Love to hear from you. Our trivia question, LeBron James now with 100 playoff victories in his career. Under 30 years old, which other player is the only below 30-year-old to pick up 100 playoff victories? 800-782-0108. We'll give away an Auburn or Alabama Sports Blitz T-shirt. A great way to get in touch with us also is on social media, whether it be Twitter or Facebook. That's a great place for you to go and find us. Sports Blitz, it's at Sports Blitz, and that sports with a Z is where you can find us there. We've talked a lot about national championships for a couple of segments, and I guess we'll swing over and we'll close out with NBA playoffs on the final segment. But Donald Sterling, $2 billion sale.
And he's suing the NBA for another $1 billion.
What are your thoughts?
I think he's got monster cojones. So that's what I think. I mean, I think that's the only thing to describe him. A group has determined he either has Alzheimer's or he's mentally unstable, and he's disputing that. And this whole thing is so weird. The whole setup, and I hate it all because I do hate the fact that his conversation was illegally taped. I loathe that. I think that goes against everything that America stands for. At the same time, the genie's out of the bottle. Everybody knows what you are now, and now to go and say, I'm not a racist, and Magic Johnson deserved, quote-unquote, the AIDS, I mean, all those things are so stupid, too. He can't get out of his own way. I guess I'm not as driven as he is. Some people have that fire in the belly to just beat you at everything, and maybe that's what he wants to do to the NBA, is just beat them at everything and beat them for everything he can. But if on a $12 million investment, somebody said, you know what, you've got to pay $657 million in capital gains tax, but then the rest of it's yours. You basically get at $1.35 million. $1.35 billion. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm 80-something years old. I'm going to go over here to this island, and I'm going to be sipping on drinks with umbrellas in them, and y'all can play NBA to your heart's content. I don't care what race you are. Why does he need more? Why does he want to do this to himself, to his family, to his legacy, to any possible friend he may have, which I think has got to be few and far between? He is one of the most intriguing characters in sports history now, in my opinion.
800-782-0108. Intriguing that the ownership was. It's intriguing to me that it was sold as quickly as it was. Is it not to you? Or do you feel like that there is a select few out there in the country that looking for a franchise with the money that they have to go out there and purchase, and those are only a select few, and everyone kind of knows who those are, and you push for those very quickly because there's very few people sitting out there with $2 billion, I would say, that have the money to be able to go and do this.
Yeah, it's a former Microsoft CEO,
Yes.
Is that right? And he's worth about $7 billion, and he's spending $2 billion on this group. And when you spend $2 billion and you have $7 billion, that's not like spending $2 when you have $7. I mean, you can't spend $7 billion in your lifetime. You have to do some really stupid stuff. So he's going to take over this team. He's a well-liked guy. I think the NBA already had there's rumors that this was already all in place, that a lot of this stuff was for show, and that a lot of this stuff was already in place. I don't think the NBA owners wanted to vote, because I think the owners do have a sense of, look, I don't want my stuff, my tapes, my conversations taped. I don't want somebody to come back and use something against me, a la Paula Dean from 30 years ago, and say that I slipped up and used a racial slur, or I said something I shouldn't have said, and that I regretted immediately, perhaps. And I don't want that coming back to haunt me and making somebody force me to sell my team. So I don't think the owners wanted to vote on this. What everybody wanted to do is for Donald Sterling to say, you know what, I'm going to take my $1-point-something billion and I'm going to go over here and quit worrying about it.
We're at JR Sports Bar and Grill. We'd love for you to be. $5.49 snack wing basket is the special each and every time you hear us on the air with Sports Blitz. $1.99. Bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids' menu. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this. Final segment of the program here, and thanks for tuning in throughout the state of Alabama on Charter Channel 80, Channel 2 here in the Lake Martin area on Charter Communications, 95.9 over in the Auburn Opelika market, and 97.5 here. NBA playoffs, how much you been watching, Luke?
I've watched some. I mean, this Spurs-Thunder series is pretty fun to watch, except for when they're in San Antonio, and it seems like San Antonio just blows the Thunder's doors off. But this Pacers thing, they've been bipolar. They beat the Heat the first game, and they look fantastic doing it. You think, okay, they've got this thing turned around. Then they lose the next game, then they get blown out in Miami. They come back to Indiana, and they finally make it a series again where it's 3-2. And then last night, they flat did not show up. That was non-competitive. And we've been there as broadcasters. When you were in the third quarter and the thing's been over and nobody's watching and nobody's listening, and you got to come up with something to say just in case somebody were to happen by it. And it's hard to do. I mean, I listened to Jeff Van Gundy, and, man, they were struggling. I mean, I hated it for them. I hated it for them more than I did for the Pacers.
They just did not show up last night, and the Heat. How good do the Heat seem? They seem even better this year than last to me. Am I thinking the same way? I know during the regular season they had some struggles, but now it just feels like if they want to, they just go out there and control the game.
Are they better, or is the league worse? The quality in the league seems worse to me. Now, San Antonio, I think San Antonio can give the Heat a lot of fits. I mean, I think San Antonio could win that thing.
Well, they could have last year. And I think that will answer it because those two teams, from what we're seeing currently, you would expect those two to maybe be back. But Oklahoma City, you can't count them out. It's funny how this has become a three-team race. You can't really throw the Indiana Pacers in there, I don't think. Oh,
they're out.
My point is that this is a three-team race in the NBA.
Oh, overall, okay, I got you.
Is that your feeling?
Yeah, and you know what? I think the Clippers could have been in there. I mean, I would say the Clippers right now have more promise for the future than do the Pacers.
Yeah.
The Pacers, that whole thing with Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear, and all that stuff's cute unless you're getting blown out the next game. You know, all that stuff's cute and fun, and I understand the mind games, and you know, LeBron kind of looked at him and was like, what is wrong with this man? But I get it because he was trying to be a modern-day Dennis Rodman. But, see, Dennis Rodman is officially 100% certified crazy. He's got papers. Lance Stevens is only pretending to be crazy.
How great is social media, honestly, as a sports fan? And I know that it's bad, and we brought up the bad parts of it, and that is Trey Williams saying what he did for Auburn, and I don't even
Josh Frazier,
whoever he is. That tells you how much I know about Alabama's commits or recruits or whoever they may be. Yes, that's bad, but otherwise, how great is it to pull up the 19,000 pictures of Stevenson's you've seen since the blowing in the ear?
Yeah, it is funny. And again, I guess we said this probably about, I mean, they probably said this in the day about the radio. It's the best and worst invention ever. I know they've said it about the television. They've said it about the internet, and now all the social media stuff. There's no doubt. It's so scary because nothing gets by anybody. And that's the thing with Donald Sterling. I mean, 15 years ago, would we know anything about the Donald Sterling stuff?
I doubt it.
I mean, it might make news in L.A. or something, but it wouldn't be a big deal. Now you can't get away from it. I mean, it's crazy. It's the best and worst invention ever.
During the next couple of months, we'll be trying to bring you as much information as we can to lead into the football season. And as we're closing out spring sports for Alabama, not as strong a year I can remember. Not a stronger year I can remember for Alabama. So congratulations again to the golf program as they win another national championship. Softball program looks well on their way to another national championship as they're currently 2-0 with a victory over Kentucky last night, 2-0. And we've had a lot of talks on high school market. We'll continue that throughout. Recruiting's always strong on this program. And, again, we'd love to hear from you, though. If there are topics, if there are kids that you'd like us to highlight or sporting events you'd like us to highlight, we'll definitely do it. I want to thank Daniel back there, Justin in the studio for producing today. For Luke Robinson, I'm Randy Lee saying come on out to JR's. We'd love to see you. Thanks for tuning in to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Yeah.